Well, for example, you have chosen, I beg your pardon, New Mexico as the framework, if you will, of this series. Yeah. And in that, you are moving across New Mexico to various locales, et cetera. Let's say you take your guy, Kevin Carney, who is the protagonist here, up to Hermit's Peak, which is what, near Las Vegas?
Right, Las Vegas, New Mexico.
Right.
Let's make that clear. A lot of people may think it's the other one.
And is it the Arm & Hammer University that is in Las Vegas?
Yeah, the World College is up there.
I beg your pardon. So anyway, you call the book Hermit's Peak after this. Do you describe Hermit's Peak more as the author, you know, just in passages or that area, or do you let Las Vegas and all of that come alive in the dialogue among your characters?
Both. I think it happens both ways.
I'm sure it does, but originally when you started, were you more inclined to describe it, and have you learned to let your characters do it?
Absolutely. I wanted to go. You know, you go out and you research it. You research. At least I do. I research the settings for my novel much the way a location manager for a motion picture firm is going to go out and scout locations for a movie. I have to get out and see. I have to literally get out and see where my characters are going to be living on the land, and it makes for a lot of fun and a lot of wonderful adventures and a lot of opportunities to meet great people, and it also allows me to avoid what I see as the pitfall of having all of my stories set in one place, which I think is very limiting. I mean, if I move the setting, I not only have a whole new environment that I can talk about, but I have the possibility of a whole new set of characters coming into play,
right,
that are part and parcel of that environment, and that just makes it a lot of fun for me as a writer.
But since he's a cop, you really can't take him out of his jurisdiction, so he has to stay in New Mexico, and you have to give him sort of...
I have to write about what I know, and I don't think I can really move this guy out of New Mexico in terms of any kind of long period of time.
Well, you'd have to give him a new job, among other things.
Yeah, and he's had some new jobs. That's another thing. This guy grows. Kearney grows as a character. I mean, he doesn't just stay in one place and do one thing.
How do we first meet him?
How do we meet him? We meet him recovering from a gunfight.
And he's, what, disabled if he's on leave?
He's disabled. He's been out of law enforcement for a couple of years. And he sort of gets drawn back into it in Tularosa through the disappearance of his godson, who's a soldier serving at White Sands Missile Range, the high security base down in southern New Mexico.
So it is a personal case. It's not one that has come to him because he's a serving policeman and there's gunshots over the hill.
This is what draws him back into law enforcement work. And from that point on, he returns to law enforcement work and stays with it.
And you have given him what different career paths within your...
He's been a seasonal forest ranger, an investigator for the state police, the deputy chief of the New Mexico State Police, and in the new book that's coming out in July under the color of law, he's going to be the Santa Fe Police Department chief in that book.
Ah, so he's going to come
in
six books.
He comes full circle.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
So what are the places that you have chosen? The Tularosa is the Tularosa.
Tularosa is southern New Mexico, White Sands, Las Cruces. There are scenes in places like El Paso and Juarez, border towns that Kearney has to deal with. So I have taken him not only out of the state, I've taken him out of the country.
That's
you can
true.
count El Paso and and Juarez. The Gila Wilderness, Catron County, Silver City Reserve, the southwestern section of New Mexico. He's been there in Mexican Hat.
And then you had Hispanics from over the border, right, that came in, the sort of old land grant. I mean, wonderful,
yeah,
I thought, wonderful characters that
yeah.
came into Mexican Hat.
Yes, that came back, an old man who had been raised in New Mexico and migrated to Mexico and stayed there and came back with his grandson to show him where he had been born and raised.
I think that whole land grant history, which is critical, I think, well, to the whole country, but certainly to the Southwest, is a fascinating thing to write about. It's sort of a variation on the Lost Air plot or whatever.
It's fun to just put little kernels of that in the books. I really enjoy doing it. In Hermit's Peak, excuse me, for example, I talked about the Whitecaps. which was a militant Hispanic organization that was really formed to act against the loss of their land grant, the Las Vegas land grant, which was lost and eroded by politicians, corrupt politicians, and land grabbers. And that's a true group of people. They even elected a representative to serve in the territorial legislature when they were operating. So I love to put those little kind of kernels in there. And sometimes I mythologize them a bit. They're not always totally factual. Like in Tularosa, we had this cache of Apache stolen military artifacts from the Indian Wars. Well, you know, nothing like that I know of really happened on the Tularosa Basin, but I thought it would be a great thing to create it. So I created it. Sometimes I move places too. I'll create places where they don't exist, or I'll move them. There's a little scene in Serpent Gate that's no biggie, but I basically moved it about 85, 100 miles to where I wanted it so I could describe it.
And why not?
Yeah.
And the point is, it could happen. I mean, just because you haven't found the cache of arms left over from the Indian Wars doesn't mean that one doesn't exist. And in fact, your Tularosa plot, I guess, almost had to go, or I don't know which order it went in. Did you want to write about White Sands and Tularosa, and thus you brought the female Army, I'm trying to remember, is she in security?
She's the commander of the Criminal Investigations Unit, Provost Marshal at White Sands. Right.
So, but you needed to get, I don't know whether you got to White Sands and then she came along to make it work, or whether she came along and then you had to find White Sands in order to give her validity. Kearney wouldn't have been able to operate on the base without this woman's permission. That's really how that all came to pass and how they came to meet and form an uneasy alliance to begin with, and then decide that they liked each other and decided that they could go a little bit further than that. And as we progress, this character keeps returning, becomes the most significant, one of the most significant persons in Kearney's life. She does, but she disappeared at the end of Tularosa on her career path, if you will. Right. In fact, out of the country. Didn't she go to Korea? Yeah, went to Korea. This has been very interesting because here's Kearney, who is a true-blooded New Mexican right down to his core and has no desire to live anywhere else, and is very committed to his own career in law enforcement, romancing and being involved with this very capable West Point graduate, career military officer, who goes away for 2 years and then comes back and then goes away again. So one of the things that makes it a lot of fun for me as a writer is I don't know what the hell's going to happen next. I'll have people ask me, are Kearney and Sarah going to get married? Are Kearney and Sarah going to have a baby? Are they going to live together? Is Sarah going to give up her career in the Army? And I don't know. I mean, I honestly do not know. But it makes it a lot of fun as I try to track these people's lives. You can look at this as 5 different books, actually 6 now with the new one coming out. Or you can look at it at really one man's life story under a half a dozen different covers. Right. And that's really what I've been telling. I've been trying to tell this guy's life story over a period of time. But that's the appeal of the series. You get that arc and you follow along. I mean, in a mystery, in any crime novel, I've enlarged my definition to crime novel because I think mystery is too much in the genre, if you will, using the word genre. I think crime novel is a larger word. You can think Dostoevsky, you can think Victor Hugo, whatever you want. You do need to have a discrete plot in the numerical version of discrete. I just edited a book where the writer, who should have known better, used the wrong version, the wrong spelling of discrete all the way through, so it's on my mind. You need to have a discrete plot so that the reader is able to hear the story, follow the story, and it ends, however it ends. And you don't always end yours, with bows and ribbons, and you shouldn't. Don't. But then the larger story, the one about Kearney and his life, goes on. It doesn't end. It just has these sort of peaks and valleys. And that's what drives people forward through the books.